it, no, me, I got something that I need to prove. I cannot lose, nah. Everything I do that really is news. You look confused, why? You are what you choosing to do. Me, I've been making the moves, paying my dues, getting this done with the fam. Y'all know that I am the dude. Bend that low, hit that high, got that hustle, got that drive.
So we also took a look at all the notable rookies around the NFL, and I tried to guess what type of role, just how much involved they would be with this team, and I projected who would boom and who would bust. So first we have to define what a boom and a bust is, okay? A boom and a bust for a rookie in week 1 is totally different than a boom and a bust for a proven established vet, okay? So if, for example, Brian Thomas Jr., I had projected as a boom, I give a green check on that. Now, he only had 4 catches on 4 targets for 47 yards and a touchdown for 14.7 fantasy points. But, again, for a rookie, he was tied for first in targets on his football team. For a rookie, that is a boom. I do not care what anybody says. 4 catches on 4 targets for 47 yards and a touchdown, tied for first on your team as a rookie in your debut, that is a boom. So, green check there on Brian Thomas Jr. What a hell of a day. Malik Neighbors, I said that he would probably be a volume guy. Malik Neighbors, within this offense, was second in targets. He caught 5 balls on 7 targets for 66 yards, ultimately finishing with 11.6. Good. I said Xavier Legette would potentially take over as the number 1 receiver in this offense by week 3 or 4, and it happened already. He had more targets than Deontay Johnson. I told you that Deontay Johnson had a tough matchup with Marshawn Lattimore and the New Orleans Saints. But Xavier Legette led his team in targets. He caught 4 of 7 from a shitty offense. I mean, Carolina could not have looked worse. New Orleans punked their ass from the get-go. But for a completely inept offense that was just embarrassing at every facet of the game, Xavier Legette having 4 receptions for 35 yards in his opening debut was pretty damn good. I already mentioned that I was wrong about Jermaine Burton. He had 0 touches. He was not involved at all. He's a shithead. He needs to get his act together before he can ever be considered a viable option on your fantasy roster. I thought Jalen Polk could potentially have a big day. They don't really have a superstar wide receiver in New England. I also don't expect him to throw the ball a whole hell of a lot. So even if he got 4 or 5 targets, I would have been happy with that. Ultimately, he was 7th in targets on this team. He did catch his 1 target for 6 yards, but I was wrong. I was just wrong there. They were looking for anybody and everybody else to give the ball to before they gave it to Jalen Polk. This was probably the most disappointing one out of everybody. And this doesn't take some fantasy guru to tell you that Marvin Harrison Jr. only having 3 targets and 1 reception for 4 fucking yards in his debut, knowing how high he went in the real draft and how high he went in your fantasy draft, to only finish his debut with 1 fucking catch for 4 yards is a tragedy. So, for those of you who took him in the back half of the first round of your fantasy football teams, I know you are pissed, but hang in there, because surprisingly, Kyler Murray did not look that bad. Somehow, some way, they gave the ball to Greg Dortch 14 times instead of this fucking generational talent that is Marvin Harrison Jr., but I was wrong about that one there. Keon Coleman, I said, would probably be the number 1 guy no matter what you hear about Khalil Shakir or what you've heard about Curtis Samuel. Keon Coleman was, in fact, first in targets on this football team, catching 4 of his 5 targets for 51 yards. I was very impressed with what this rookie was able to accomplish, and like I told you, Josh Allen hates his tight ends. I could not believe how high Dalton Kincaid was going this year. I did the same shit with Dawson Knox 2-3 years ago. I did the same thing with Kincaid last year. I don't know why everybody thinks all of a sudden Josh Allen's going to like his tight ends. If Josh Allen does not see his receivers open and he's left with his tight ends, he is running the fucking football himself before he will throw it to a tight end. A.D. Mitchell, I thought would boom He had the potential to, but like I said, AR's erratic with the football. He was targeted 5 times, which is second for the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. He was only able to catch one for 2 yards. A lot of that blame goes to AR, not him. The potential was there. I still believe that the potential is there. The throwing the ball 75 yards down the field on your back foot and having it left up to a prayer by Alec Pierce 60 yards down the football field, that shit is not sustainable. They've got to figure out a way. Shane Steichen and these guys in Indianapolis have got to figure out a more sustainable approach to this offense. Once they do, A.D. Mitchell will be involved. Brock Bowers, I said, would boom. He did. He was the number one leader in targets on this Las Vegas Raiders football team like we expected he would be. He was the third tight end overall in fantasy football this weekend, catching 6 of his 8 targets for 58 yards. What a debut for Brock Bowers. He was as advertised. Bucky Irving was my sleeper. I was one of the first people to say something about Bucky Irving. Rachaad White has had the benefit of having basically zero talent at running back behind him. Bucky Irving was not talked about at all until probably the last 2 or 3 weeks of draft season. So I don't know what whispers were crawling up from where, but just know I've been talking about this dude for the last month and a half. He had 9 carries on 62 yards. That's 6.9 yards per carry for Bucky Irving in his debut. He also caught 2 of his 3 targets for 14 yards. Bucky is going to be involved in Tampa Bay. Keep your eye on him. And if he's still available in your leagues, for the love of God, go add him to your roster. Ladd McConkey also had a hell of a day, obviously. We talked about him earlier. What a great performance. I mean, I really wasn't that high on Ladd McConkey, to be honest with you. I thought that he would be the third option on this football team, but he was first in targets week 1. Obviously, I said Jaden Daniels would have a massive day because Tampa Bay, A, doesn't have a pass rush. B, they've got holes everywhere in their secondary. I thought that this game would be a shootout, and it was. Jaden Daniels looked like a Heisman Trophy winner. To me, he looked like he had the ability to improv with his athleticism, similar to Lamar Jackson, and also have the mental fortitude and the calmness in the pocket and obviously scrambling around a little bit to deliver the ball all over the football field. He threw the ball to about 7 or 8 different receivers, and multiple guys. I think 5 or 6 receivers shared 3 or 4 targets apiece. I mean, this football was spread around as evenly as they could get, and for a quarterback that only threw for 184 yards, he was really efficient, honestly. He didn't have any touchdowns, but he didn't have any picks. He ran more than I would like to see my starting quarterback run. He had 16 carries for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, which, again, is why he won the Heisman Trophy. But not really sustainable in the NFL, as history shows us. I was also wrong about Malachi Corley, but who cares? It was a shot in the dark. He was like a 6th-round draft pick or some shit out of Western Kentucky. And I just thought that he might catch 1 or 2. He's got a big play potential, but to be honest with you, Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett, they've got to go, man. The fact that Aaron Rodgers only threw the fucking football 21 times is crazy to me. He played 9 drives in this football game, whereas Tyrod Taylor only come in garbage time for 1 drive and threw the ball 8 times. 8 times in 1 drive, and you've got Aaron Rodgers, who over the course of 9 drives threw the ball 21 fucking times. 2.5 pass attempts per possession compared to Tyrod Taylor's 8. Are you shitting me? I hit on every single one of the busts. I was 6 out of 6 on the rookies that I told you would bust. Jalen Wright, running back in Miami. I told you there's too many mouths to feed. He's got too many people ahead of him. Jeff Wilson had a role in this offense. Jalen Wright is 4th on this depth chart. He might not be listed that way, but he is. He had 0 touches. Roma Dunze had a horrible day as well, because I also told you Caleb Williams would have a rough day. This Tennessee defense is overlooked because they're a shitty football team overall, but their secondary is top 10. The Tennessee Titans defense, honestly, is no joke, and it's overlooked because of just how shitty, the offense is at times. But I knew that they would make it rough on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams did not look like himself. He was out of sorts. He lost all confidence. And to be honest with you, I was kind of grinning from ear to ear looking at it because this man threw for less than 50% completion rate, 14 out of 29 pass attempts for 93 yards, 0 touchdowns. And this man wanted to be part owner going into the football season, man. I was so happy. He only had 5 carries for 15 yards. He was ineffective there as well. He fumbled the ball. He was, I think, bottom 3 in fantasy points out of every starting quarterback that started this weekend. And that includes Daniel Jones, who is shitty, Bryce Young, who is shitty, and Kirk Cousins, who is shitty. So, Caleb Williams, welcome to the NFL. With that said, I do think that brighter days are ahead. But, fuck, you needed this, dude. I hope it works. I thought Bo Nix would have some growing pains. Worried about just the weapons in general, the surrounding cast with Bo Nix. I wasn't really too concerned with Sean Payton, but now I am. They asked this man to throw 42 times in this football game. God, it was ugly. It was ugly the whole time. It got ugly quick. He had one highlight reel, and it was an ill-advised run and flip into the damn end zone. He's going to get his back broken, but I know why he did it, because the first 3.5 quarters were so damn embarrassing that he just had to do something to justify being out there. This man was 26 of 42 with 138 yards and 2 picks. Like I said, the only touchdown that he had was a scamper towards the end of the game. He had 11.02 fantasy points, but hell, he did better than the Heisman Trophy winner. And then finally, I told you that Blake Corum and Trey Benson equally were behind running backs who most people predicted would take an unforeseen step back. Why? Why the fuck would Sean McVay pull the reins back on Kyren Williams? And similarly, why would James Conner be pulled back in Arizona when James Conner's really been the only consistent offensive production that Arizona's had over the last 2 seasons? It doesn't make any sense. And yet everybody out there was listing Blake Corum and Trey Benson among the top running backs taken, rookie running backs taken, behind Jonathan Brooks, who obviously is dealing with an ACL tear that happened last year. He'll be back shortly. But everybody was predicting Blake Corum and Trey Benson, and I kept saying, no. Where are the touches? Blake Corum got exactly 0 touches for 0 yards. Trey Benson only had 3 carries for 13 yards. James Conner touched the ball over 20 times in this football game. Kyren Williams and James Conner are still the number ones. So, to anybody who thought otherwise, I really would like to hear your thought process on why you thought that this would happen. Same thing with Jalen Wright. A lot of guys had Jalen Wright. Yeah, he's talented, but it's the wrong situation. You guys have got to look at these football teams and understand how they're built. You don't just get talent and then just start them over talent that you already have. That only happens when you're looking to replace guys that aren't getting the fucking job done. So, overall, with the rookies, I had 14 right, 4 wrong, and 1 kinda on A.D. Mitchell because he did have 5 targets, but because AR-15 can't hit the broadside of the fucking barn, he only was able to haul in 1 of them for 2 yards. So, but, I mean, honestly, it was a hell of a weekend. Even though I went 4-1 in my fantasy leagues, honestly, my teams were shitty. I had a couple lucky breaks and a couple guys that I added late from the waiver wire and flipped in, i.e. being Baker Mayfield. I flipped him last minute over Dak Prescott. Ended up scoring 35 points to Dak's 15. I won that league by 10 points. Shout out Todd Yagi. Sorry about it. Overall, it was a great weekend of fantasy football, and I'm going to come out with another video shortly, probably by tomorrow, looking back on the actual football games themselves, more so than the fantasy projections. So this show is going to continue to be of fantasy gambling and also real football. So something that I haven't really gotten into a whole lot because football hasn't started are the actual X's and O's of the games. But now that the season's rolling, we're going to start really looking at these teams and their game plans and kind of breaking down some of the X's and O's and really seeing how these matchups are going to play out over the course of the season. I've been working on projecting all the division winners, every record. I've got every single game mapped out, wins and losses for every single team. I had that done before the season started. Didn't put it out because I have to see at least 1 week before I make those public. So clearly, there are going to be some changes made. This team, done. Fucking done with them. The Falcons, fucking done with them. I had both of those teams. Well, I didn't have the Bengals winning their division. I had the Ravens winning their division. But there are going to be some changes made, and then I'm going to put those videos out, and we're going to project who is going to win every division, who is going to make the playoffs in those 3 coveted wild card positions, and then ultimately who is going to represent their conferences in this year's Super Bowl. So, with that being said, looking forward to the next video. We'll recap each and every game from this weekend individually, and I'm going to be putting those out in bits and pieces. So, looking forward to it. See you.
How you play the game with the people that writing the rules? Ain't the fame that I'm after when paying the dues. I've been through the pain that's reflected in the attitude. Might be winning now, but the thing is that I had to lose. So go and tell me what you really want to do. And lonely at the top, cause there ain't a lot of room. Ain't no other option, it's all I ever knew. So I'ma get it poppin', you know how I'ma do. I've been down through the blood and the sweat. Guarantee you can know I'm a threat. I've been down through the blood and the sweat, and I ain't close to being done yet, I'm going all in.